Hello and welcome to Secure Schools, a cyber security webinar from inTEC Education. I am Owen Collar, Head of Cyber Security Audit and Lead Assessor for the Cyber Essentials scheme. Thank you very much for joining us today. We've purposely kept this webinar to a brief 20 minutes, as we appreciate everyone is very busy and we want to be as concise as possible. A quick overview of inTEC Education for those who don't know about us. We are a team of education technology specialists based in Guildford in Surrey, with over 20 years experience of independent schools, multi-academy trusts, maintained and special schools. We offer IT services that enable quality, innovation and excellence in education. Our team are agile and flexible, which allows us to deliver tailored and comprehensive IT solutions. We are a Microsoft Gold partner who offer proactive IT and infrastructure support to many of the top schools and colleges around the UK. We specialise in 4 key solution areas: digital transformation, managed IT support services, infrastructure and cloud services, and cyber security and safeguarding. Today, I'm going to focus on cyber security, specifically the Cyber Essentials scheme. I'm going to cover the key changes to the standard, which are being introduced in April 2023, and focus on the changes which will facilitate the achievement of this standard within the educational sector for schools and colleges. If you have any questions during the webinar, feel free to post them in the chat and I'll review them at the end of the session. So let's get started. For those of you who may not know, firstly, what is Cyber Essentials? Simply put, the Cyber Essentials scheme is a UK government-backed initiative that helps organisations to protect themselves against common cyber threats. The scheme provides a framework for implementing basic cyber security measures and focuses on 5 key technical controls. The first being boundary firewalls and internet gateways, and these devices help to protect an organisation's computer systems and networks for more unauthorised access from the internet. The second is secure configuration, and this involves ensuring that computer systems and software are configured securely with up-to-date software and patches installed, and strong passwords used to protect access to these systems. The third, access control, and this involves controlling who has access to an organisation's computer systems and data, and ensuring that only authorised individuals have the ability to modify or delete this information. Fourth being malware protection, and this involves implementing antivirus and anti-malware software on all computer systems to protect against the spread of malware and to help detect and remove malicious software. The fifth being patch management, and this involves ensuring that computer systems and software are kept up to date with the latest security patches and software updates. By implementing these 5 technical controls, organisations can help to protect themselves against common cyber threats and minimise the risk of cyber attacks. The Cyber Essentials scheme also provides guidelines for good cyber security practices, such as regularly backing up data and monitoring for suspicious activity, to help organisations better defend against cyber attacks. The Cyber Essentials standard is under constant review to cater for any technical changes or issues that the NCSE, which is the National Cyber Security Centre, feels need to be covered within the standard. They will also consider feedback from certification bodies and direct from organisations completing the standard. Changes are being introduced in April 2023 and they have been formed based on the major changes introduced back in January last year. The changes for April were due to go live in January, however, some of the questions required additional challenges and hence have been delayed. So the summary of Cyber Essentials changes is grace periods have been extended to April. clarification surrounding firmware support, clarification on third-party devices in scope, updates to device unlocking, updates to anti-malware and malware protection, and guidance on zero trust and asset management. So the grace periods have been extended until April. So all cloud services must have MFA to all standard user accounts. Thin clients will need to be listed in the assessment and supported. And unsupported software such as applications will need to be removed from scope, air-gapped into their own subset. So firmware clarification. Firmware has always been included for all devices, laptops, desktops, mobile devices, servers and hypervisors. However, this has been changed to only firewall and router firmware. All software must be supported, the operating systems, i.e. Windows 10, Windows 11, Android 14, but there is no longer a requirement to check a device's firmware. If your device, laptop, desktop, can run a supported operating system, this is sufficient to pass Cyber Essentials. Apart from the firewall or router, these must remain in support and declared within the scope. And this is the only change which applies with immediate effect. And the statement relating to user devices is reworded to Cyber Essentials will require that all applicants list their laptops, desktops, servers, computers, tablets and mobile phones with details of the make and operating system. However, when it comes to firewalls and routers, the applicant will only be asked to list make and model, but not the specific version of the firmware. And this no longer requires check-in by the assessor. We will still require the number, make and operating systems of these devices, and this change has already been adopted by some universities. So, Cyber Essentials and third-party devices. Historically, third-party devices have been difficult to understand when to include in scope, particularly within the education sector and applying the standard to students' devices. A table has been created which clearly identifies when a device should be included within scope and when to remove, and in particularly students' devices which are BYOD, bring your own device. They're no longer included and can be safely taken out of scope. All user access accounts and accounts accessing cloud services are in scope of the assessment, and this can be difficult to implement for schools and colleges for their students. But for the first time, IASME are publishing the fact that failing to implement MFA would attract 2 non-conformities, which is the maximum number allowed to pass the Cyber Essentials scheme. Hence, if all other controls are compliant and in place for the standard, with the exception of MFA, an organisation, school or college can still attain certification. An extract from the published infrastructure requirements documentation. So where devices are not in scope of the assessment, the school or organisation is still responsible for confirming that the devices accessing organisational services and data are configured correctly. But how this is achieved is up to them, as it falls outside of the scope of the assessment. This change to the Cyber Essentials standard should help schools and organisations achieve certification considerably easier once the changes go live in April 2023. So there's a device unlocking update. So brute force requirements for device unlocking only need applying when available, if the vendor of the device allows the configuration to be altered. When the vendor does not allow configuration modifications in line with the Cyber Essential requirements, the organisation should use the vendor's defaults. For example, this particularly applies to mobile devices. Where the question states that an appliance or device requires a minimum of 10 failed login attempts, Samsung devices have introduced this feature. However, their minimum number of failed logins has been set to 15. In this instance, as it's the default setting and cannot be changed to meet the standard, can now be classed as acceptable. So a malware protection update. Anti-malware software no longer needs to be signature-based. The change has been made to allow for the introduction of next-generation solutions. The wording signature-based has been dropped from the question. The requirement for implementing a specific anti-malware solution should be following the vendor's specific best practices for updating. And detailed guidance can be found in the infrastructure guidance document. Sandboxing has also been removed from the anti-malware section, and this was always difficult to prove it was a suitable solution for anti-malware. The zero trust guidance, and this not apply to many schools or organisations, that this guidance will apply, but any organisation or school who may be implementing the Cyber Essentials controls will not prevent them from adopting the zero trust model. And this is a direct correlation between Cyber Essentials and the NCSE's zero trust model, and documentation will be available to guide organisations linking both requirements. And asset management guidance. So asset management is not a specific control, but is considered to complement all 5 technical controls of Cyber Essentials. It is important that devices are owned by an organisation before these required technical controls can be applied. This guidance has been introduced as many organisations, especially with the introduction of cloud services, hybrid, remote working, have no or little idea of the devices connected to organisation systems or data. In order to apply the technical controls, you must understand which devices they must be applied to. So let's just recap on those 7 key changes. Grace periods have been extended to April 2023. The clarification surrounding firmware support, clarification on third-party devices in scope, updates to device unlocking, update to anti-malware, malware protection, and guidance on zero trust and asset management. So that brings us to the end of today's webinar. I hope you found it really useful. Before you dash off, I'd just like to mention that I am available to offer guidance and advice to any organisations who wish to apply for Cyber Essentials accreditation, or those who have queries about the new changes coming into force. If you're interested in talking further, please simply reach out to your inTEC education representative, and their email address is inquiries@intecheducation.com, or simply call them on 0330 555 5550. You may also be interested to pop over to our website, intecheducation.com/secure schools, where you can download some free additional information about cyber attacks on schools and the infrastructure requirements document, which I have referred to during this webinar. So thank you very much, and please do let me know if you have any queries.